So, hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Based on where you are, it might be morning, or if you're where I am, afternoon. So, this webinar is definitely stretching across the United States. My name is Megan Woolerton. I am in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I run a company called Life Force Wellness, where we do individual and corporate wellness programming. And I have the pleasure today of talking with Alicia in California. How are you, Lisa?
I'm fabulous. I'm in San Francisco, and so is Priscilla. And I think, and I'm wonderful. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so happy we're doing this. So, you and I really talked about doing some kind of collaboration for like the last year. So, I'm excited that we're pulling something together. And this really seemed to be a hot topic. I know when you and I had kind of our quarterly check in with each other, you and I both kind of mentioned on how it just seems everyone is so busy and it's hard to wrap around nutrition around these crazy busy schedules. And you and I just started talking about like, that should be it. That's what we should talk about. So today we're really just going to dive in on everyone who's on this call. We're also going to be recording and sharing this out on YouTube, and you'll all get an invite for that as well in case you have to pop up or you want to rewatch this in case there was any little nuggets in there you kind of feel like you need to hear again. We encourage you to check back in, but really tackling this situation around nutrition, I feel like it's so much easier as a personal trainer for people to work in their workouts. Like it's easy to go, okay, I'm going to show up and work with my trainer for 30 minutes, but like to take the time to like meal prep just seems so overwhelming. So let's just throw the basic question out there. Is meal prepping really that hard?
Priscilla says no. That's good. She's one of my Quick and Delish Life meal planning members, but she was a rock star at meal planning with her husband before um, I met her. But so I think it can be overwhelming depending how you think about it. Like you said, like sometimes exercise can be more challenging, but sometimes making the time for exercise can be challenging as well. It's all perspective. And so there's many steps to meal planning. So there's like the grocery shopping, there's the actual cutting and preparation, and then there's the cooking, and then there's the eating, and then the storage, and then you kind of go through the cycle over and over again. So the basic most important thing to know is having a system to make it easy, because with anything we can say, oh, it's going to be a big deal, it's hard, but like really, like health is our best investment, and time management is a part of the thing of living this wonderful life we get to do. And so I think just the biggest thing that I teach in my Quick and Delish Life program is take 10 minutes a week to strategize what you're going to have. And I think breaking it down into, one step at a time to make it easier. So like a lot of things that we're going to talk about this throughout this session today is like the things that you already know how to make. Write the list of those things down for your go-to meals and snacks. Have them on your refrigerator, have them in the notes of your phone, have them so you have a shopping list with you at any moment. And so you know how to make tacos, you know how to make like chili, whatever your go-to meals are. And to make it interesting, because we need variety, we need a system and we need variety to keep our attention. Because, some people say they can eat the same thing over and over again for some meals, maybe, or maybe a lot of meals, because some people like the Steve Jobs approach, where like you wear the same, like a black shirt, black pants, keep it easy and simple, less decisions. Less decisions is a really big deal, because at night, when you're tired and you're like, oh, I'm out of decisions, you just want to chill out or whatever. We need life to be super easy when we're exhausted and we're ready for the next thing. So create your go-to meals and snacks list on the refrigerator and the notes of your phone and the computer. Make it easy, or a journal, so that everyone in the house can see what's in the refrigerator. Because I know as a kid, I remember the feeling of opening the refrigerator and saying, oh, we don't have anything. But like, there's always something. So I don't cook when I'm actually hungry, usually. That's like
That
letting the monster inside cook for you. You know what I mean? Or like if the monster inside goes grocery shopping, what happens?
Yeah. So I was gonna say that's the one rule I always have is I never go grocery shopping hungry because then I buy the most garbage food because I'm like, oh, that sounds so good right now. And then I hate myself like 10 days later because it wasn't healthy for me. And then I felt sluggish or gross or bloated or, just not okay. And so I think that's a great point is don't wait till you're hungry to cook. And I'm actually the opposite. Like it's not when I go to the fridge and it's I'm so blessed that I have this problem but like I go to the pantry or something and I'm almost overwhelmed by the options I have. And part of that is I have two small children, so we have all the toddler food. And then I myself have Crohn's disease. So I have the treats that are good and safe for me. And then my husband's lactose intolerant. So then there's the treats that are safe for him. And so there's like so many options staring me in the face when I open that pantry. And then what do? I go for the creature comfort. And to your point, that end of the day, decision fatigue is real. So we only have the capacity to make so many decisions in a day, which is why we might start the day off great, healthy breakfast, hit the gym, get that project done at work. But by the time we get home at night, we are so done making decisions. And that's where most fights happen with most couples, I feel like, is what's for dinner because nobody wants to make that decision. And so I think this is really helpful, like having just that go-to list. Okay, you have three options to pick from. And that's even what like my husband and I do. If we decide we're going to go out to eat, I'll narrow it down to two options, and then he makes the final decision. And narrowing down that decision window is huge for really being able to make a good, healthier decision. So if I had that list in front of the refrigerator, here's what's available to me, or on the pantry, pick one of the five or one of the four instead of overwhelm.
Totally, totally, totally. So like once or twice a week, I might make a couple things, like 2 to 3 things. So that might be like the chili idea or like enchiladas, or one of my recipes is a chicken salsa verde, which is literally like a pound of chicken. You choose what kind of chicken you want with, or it could be fish, with 2 cans of black beans, a jar of salsa verde, and then a red bell pepper, and then substitute the red bell pepper for something else if you don't need it. So when you see, I've been a dietitian for over 10 years, and my first career was as a chef. And like I know if I say something and you're like, I don't like that, I can't have that, you have to train yourself to think like, what is it? What do I like? So if I say chicken and you don't eat chicken, you're like, what is it? Protein? You substitute what you like. If I say beans, you're like, what is it? That's a plant-based protein. It's a carb. You substitute it. Because I know, like I've offered recipes to people over the years and everything. And so like the idea is like we all need to learn how to translate information, like nutrition information, so that we can figure out how to have the good stuff that we want.
And I think that's what sets you apart and why I was so excited to have you on today is because with your quick and delish, you aren't just a registered dietitian that's going to sit there and be like, here's what you should eat, here's what you should avoid, here's a list of healthy meals. But you also have that chef background. So you know how to like play with the flavors, play with the foods, make the healthy substitutions. So you're very unique in that regard that like you really do help us make meals that we want to eat. Like you were a super saver with me with like my husband loves Italian food, but he's lactose intolerant. As he's gotten older, he cannot handle dairy. And you were able to like help us find recipes to substitute. What do you find with other people? Like what are the big substitutions that you're usually giving out there? Like what are like the top 3 substitutions you're giving to clients?
Probably dairy, and dairy could be for a lot of reasons, like the digestion period, um, and helping to reduce fat in some way. Also reducing, I find it's easier for me, like every now and again I have a client, like right now I have a client where I'm making a meal plan, but recipes, like 3 to 5 of these recipes twice a week, and it's time consuming. But it's actually kind of fun. It's just time consuming. But so recipes with a shopping list, and like, so it's easier to make a recipe that's like dairy free because I'm not adding that one ingredient. So I'm just adding why dairy free is helpful. But the thing with dairy free is sometimes we might not get enough protein at some meal, like oatmeal or something like that. But there's ways to add protein. So dairy is one substitute, maybe gluten-free. But you can't just like substitute something that's gluten-free, like a bread or a packaged food item with a gluten-free one and think that you're going to get comparable nutrition. A lot of gluten-free products, say bread, are lower in fiber. And so you got to figure out how to add fiber. And so I oftentimes, for the gluten-free, I'll just go with like beans, lentils, quinoa. There's lots of like regular whole foods based items that are gluten-free that have more nutrition. And then sometimes in terms of just replacing processed foods with whole foods based things that don't take a lot of time. Those are my three main substitutions.
Yeah.
And then
Really.
sugar also, like I think sugar is oftentimes a conversation piece where it's not about being a total, you're not turning into like an anti-sugar person. You're turning like I think the idea is like figure out how to have sugar in a way that works. And if you're super sensitive, any little morsel of sugar is a problem, then that's helpful for you to understand and accept. But like we're all humans and we live in this modern complex world. And so if you want birthday cake and that's a thing, you figure out how to have that, whether or not you make it at home with like soaked dates and there's no added sugar, or you just have the really good cake that you want from the fancy place, and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. So my thing is whenever I meal prep, and I'm not a chef, so that's part of the problem here. But when I
It's
meal
not a
prep,
problem.
it's what I'm great at a lot of things. Meal prepping is not one of them. I've really tried. And here's what I've heard from a lot of my clients, and I struggle with this too, is when I think of meal prepping, I'm like, it's kind of like eating leftovers. Is there a trick? Like, should I undercook my food so that when I reheat it, it comes to proper temperature? Do you have any advice so that whenever I go to like prep meals, that when I reheat them in the microwave, when I get to the office the next day or I'm ready to eat them, that they don't feel like they're dried out or like yesterday's leftovers?
Okay, so one is the mindset, how you think about it. So I prefer to think of leftovers as bonus meals because you put in the time investment to hook yourself up in the future. So some of it is like I've had folks that I work with in the past, and they're like, oh, one day a week, have kitchen sink, everything in the kitchen sink meal. And I was like, please don't tell your family that that's what you're doing because nobody wants to eat kitchen sink dinner. That's when you're like, hey, can we order pizza? Because we're having kitchen sink dinner. And so it's about how you talk about it for sure. And then if you're making something, like meals that freeze really well are like the chilies, the stews, the soups. Um, and I think sometimes brightening up the flavors. So like say if you made like Megan, what's a specific example of a meal that you're like sad and it's dry and
Usually anytime I do chicken, like I love chicken breasts. And I don't know if it's that I overcook them when I first make them or over reheat them, but they always end up just kind of bland and dried out and a little tough.
Yeah. So not overcooking them for sure. And one of my favorite ways to cook chicken, like, like the boneless, skinless chicken thighs or whatever, and you could roast a chicken. It doesn't have to be dry. I think a lot of times people just overcook their chicken because they're fear of salmonella or whatever, but you don't, just cook it well and take the temperature. So I think just searing, you like season whatever, chicken parts. And then you sear them both sides, and then you pour some chicken stock or vegetable stock or bone broth or whatever in the pan. So you create a moist environment, and
Mhm.
then you put it in the oven, like 350 for like 10 minutes, and then it's gonna be cooked and it's gonna be tender and moist.
Awesome. So I'm
And
gonna
like I have a turkey burger recipe that has caramelized onions and grated apple, grated zucchini. So the apple or the zucchini add moisture.
yeah, I've
And there's
not
like cilantro and scallions. And I'll share some recipes with Megan so that those who attend or were registered get some recipes. But yeah, if it's dry, you're gonna be sad, and you know, you can be happy when you're enjoying meals that you made in the past. But I think one of the things I think about is like freeze it the day you made it for the future. So you have options, because if it sits in the fridge for like 3 to 4 days and you're like, oh, that was the past. I don't want to go to the past because it already happened. But if you freeze it, then it's preserved more, like it's freshly preserved, and then you have options. If you're like, oh, we went out to eat and now we have more food in the refrigerator than we're going to eat, then you're always going to have more options if it's frozen.
Oh, I like that, the freeze them. And I never really thought about even like cooking it in broth to give it a little bit more juice. If anyone else has any questions on this call, you are welcome to add those to the chat. We will be answering your questions as we kind of go and at the end. So if you've got something that you've tried to meal prep and you're like, it makes me sad, like me the next day, and you'd like some advice on that, please let us know. We're here to answer your questions. So, what are some of the foods that you find don't make for the best meal prep? Like, I've seen this thing going viral now on TikTok with like, you shouldn't reuse rice. Like, you shouldn't eat day old rice or something because it grows some kind of bacteria. But like, I feel like there's a lot of false information out there too. Are there any foods that we should be concerned about, like having in the fridge and using as meal prep that we should steer clear of?
Um, I mean, so rice and starches like pasta, they actually, once you cook and cool a starch, pasta, potato, rice, whatever starch, you cook and cool it and then you reheat it. It has more resistant starch in it, and it actually helps with, it doesn't spike our blood sugar as much. So I just said the opposite of what you said about the rice. And so, like
Yeah.
you said, like out there in the world, there's a mixed bag of information. And, you know, there's always going to be some sort of food that's contaminated, and it might be temporarily contaminated. So, like, the goal is to not go crazy. And if it helps you to avoid whatever food for a bit to just have peace of mind, because that helps you sleep at night, go for it. Um, but like if you're buying something, I think in terms of meal prep, use it within 3 days so that you have like the food safety situation taken care of, or freeze it. And that's my conservative approach. Also to manage, you know, the whole like being in the refrigerator longer and forgetting about it and then like throwing it away or whatever. I used to teach food safety, and you know, technically you should be able to eat something that's been in the refrigerator for 7 days, as long as it's been held in a cold, you know, the right temperature. But I prefer to eat things just fresher for all the reasons I just explained. Um, but I don't think it's about staying away from anything. I think it's more about like focusing on satisfying meals that hit the spot, and not having something too long. I mean, I would warn more against like forcing yourself to have like salad with chicken or salad with whatever for too long, or whatever the thing is that you feel like is going to help you be like the healthy version of yourself that might be too restrictive. Any restrictive behaviors are usually not super helpful.
Yeah. So one of the arguments that you and I talked about with that we've heard from our clients is, oh, well, if I buy all the pre-cut, pre-washed vegetables, they're expensive. And I just don't think I have the time to clean them. How much time do you think it actually takes to like do good prep to plan those snacks and those grab and go meals? Like being honest, how long does it typically take?
Well, whatever, it'll probably take me half the time than it does like a person out there, and depending on your experience. And if you have, so if you live with yourself, not alone, but with yourself, you are worthy of doing all this for yourself anytime. But if you have another human in the house, whether or not they're younger, and they can help, and there are more people, then it's more efficient. So sure, use like the cut up broccoli, the cauliflower. Sometimes those aren't expensive. You know, sometimes some things, like just check the grocery store and see like what's like you'll be surprised. Sometimes a bag of whatever is like $3, and sometimes the same thing at a different store is 7. And so there's some places that are like within a week, you're not going to do the same approach every week, usually. So like say if you have I mean the topic here is about like busy days or and so like if you look at your week ahead and you're like this week is a wackadoodle week, I'm gonna buy the pre-cut broccoli, the frozen broccoli. I'm gonna whatever, make the chili, make, 6 to 8 serving, like make 2 pots of something that gives you a lot of servings so that you're just like, it's just super easy. And then, one of the biggest strategies I use is twice a month, I do this like bigger cooking thing that might take me 4 hours. It might take you a little bit longer, but fill the freezer. And then I'm not doing a big cooking thing every week. I'm emptying my freezer by the end of the month and then doing that again. So it's not something, because you're going to go away the weekend, you're going to not be around. And so that's a way to manage time to make it easy. And having the apple with peanut butter or apple with sun butter or those types of things help with having something simple that's fresh, crunchy, and protein.
Yeah, absolutely. I know one of the things I do with my family is like on those days, especially in the winter, I love to do soups in the winter. My mom and I will actually coordinate like, hey, I'm going to make potato soup. She's going to make vegetable soup. We'll make a big pot and then we'll share jars. Or like sometimes my grandmother will call and say like, hey, I'm making chili. I'll make something else. Or she's got extra vegetables. What can we do with it? And so we actually share. And so I've encouraged with my corporate clients to do that. Each one of you make a big batch of something that you can freeze that makes for a good meal. And then almost like we do it at Christmas, don't we? Like we do the Christmas cookie exchanges. Why not keep it going and do like the meal prep exchanges and do like, hey, somebody's chili, somebody's stew. And then that way, yeah, you've got this big pot. But like when I make a big batch, I make a huge batch. And before I hit that last jar, I'm like, I am so sick of potato soup. So it's also a great way to not get bored with something is just building a community around that on, hey, I'm making this. I've got 3 extra jars. Who wants to switch me for 3 extra jars of whatever you have?
Totally, totally, totally. And if you froze it at the end of the month or the beginning of the next month, and you're like, and you look in your freezer and you're like, what's that? And you're like, oh, that's that delicious potato soup. Yes. But you
That
have to label it because if you don't label it, you're going to forget. And then you're going to be like, oh, what's that? Sad. So sad. It's old food that I don't know what it is.
or it could be a surprise. You could have like the mystery. What's in this jar? Like we'll find
And
out
then
when
we
we get
make
there.
assumptions that it's bad because we don't know what it is, because frozen food doesn't look delicious. That's why we need to know what it is. I just did that. Like, I think it was a month ago, I made a white bean and asparagus soup and it was delicious. Oh, it has dill in it and chicken bone broth. And so it was balanced, as it is. And I could add other things to it if I wanted to. Sometimes I had like a little bit of lentil salad on the side or salad. So last week I looked in the freezer and I was like, oh, what is that? Oh, asparagus white bean soup. Yum. And then I had that for lunch. It was very exciting.
Yeah, awesome. So that's like really planning for those busy weeks. But what about when you're in the thick of it? Maybe like, I mean, I have those wackadoodle weeks that I didn't know were going to be wackadoodle until I was on like midday Wednesday. And I'm going like, I'm halfway through this week and I'm having a hard time finding my bearings. Now I'm in the thick of it and in the weeds. What would you recommend to somebody's like, this wasn't supposed to be a crazy week. I didn't prep on Sunday like I normally would. Now what do I do?
So you have some food in your refrigerator, right? Probably.
Yeah,
Okay.
some.
Okay. So you probably have some beans, maybe, if you're a bean person. Most people have some beans. Like the goal is to have some kind of stock of stuff at all times so you can manage no matter what. Like you don't have to order out, but you could order out and figure it out, right?
Mhm.
So I would have, so you can make a quick like 3 bean salad, right? Chickpeas, red kidney beans, maybe some kind of vegetable. If you had green beans, that would be cool. And then just apple cider vinegar, olive oil, salt, pepper. If you had green onion, that would be cool. But you could also use just like dried oregano.
Mhm.
So bean salad that has protein, carb, and some kind of vegetable. It could be like red bell pepper, or if you don't have like fresh vegetables on hand, I like to keep on hand jars of roasted red bell pepper or jars of artichoke hearts because those are vegetables.
Hmm.
or frozen artichoke hearts that you could, quickly add lemon juice, olive oil, whatever. So now you have beans with some sort of vegetable and flavor. So that could be something you eat on its own and you're like, that's what I'm having. You could add hard-boiled egg or poached egg or egg in some way. You could add like, tuna like in a pouch or salmon in a pouch to that, and then on greens. So make a protein kind of salad thing, egg salad, salmon salad, tuna salad, and then that could be the protein. And you can always buy like cooked quinoa, wild rice that's cooked, or some sort of grain mixture from any of our major grocery stores, Target, Walmart. I know you guys have Walmart out there in the United States. And then Whole Foods has this grain blend called 12 grain blend. These are all shelf stable, cooked for you.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so between the beans and the whole grains that are cooked, or if you add sweet potato, sometimes I'll just roast sweet potatoes and then cut them up cut them in halves and then have them in the freezer, and then I have like a carb to add to something. So
Okay.
when I do some meal prep, I don't necessarily always have like I freeze individual servings so that I could just like heat that up. But sometimes I'll just have like sweet potatoes, or sometimes I'll have like the chicken and like the bean and it's missing a vegetable. You don't have to finish complete a meal to have a complete thing. And then, there's always overnight oats or chia seed pudding for something that's quick to make. And so you having liquid on hand, maybe milk, regular cow's milk, or I like unsweetened soy milk. Either Trader Joe's has unsweetened soy milk or the brand Eden Foods.
Mm.
And the ingredients in those two products are soybeans and water.
Hmm.
And there it's totally a legit source of protein. And so the soy milk comes in like, regular soy milk containers, the Tetra packages, and so they don't require refrigeration. So that's like having a backup of liquid protein on hand. You can make a smoothie.
Yeah, that's my usually go-tos. I like the smoothies. Now, here's what I hear from some of my clients is, well, don't smoothies have a lot of sugar? There's like this, people get weird with like fruits, I feel like, oh, fruits have too much sugar. It's almost like I think Atkins and all those kinds of diets kind of ruined fruits for a lot of people because they think that's protein. Oh, we can't eat an apple. It has too many carbs. It has too many sugars. But there's so many good vitamins and minerals in that. Should people, especially, and this is another thing, is with diabetics, I feel like there's a lot of misinformation. Oh, I'm diabetic. I have to watch my sugar, so I can't eat those fruits. I can't do those smoothies. What's the truth there? What should they be doing? How should they be having those fruits? What advice can you give someone like that?
Absolutely. So it's about the portion. Like back in the day, we learned to eat bigger portions of carbohydrates. The toast with the potatoes and the with glass orange juice and the milk or whatever. Or whatever the normal, like regular restaurants, it's usually the portions big, specifically for the carbohydrates. And so like for a smoothie specifically, like the portions for a smoothie, and everybody here is different shape, size, exercise, etc. But like a general template that I recommend is like anywhere between a quarter to a half cup of fruit. Start there. This is one single serving. You're adding 20 to 25 grams of protein. So the protein is any kind of liquid or like Greek yogurt or hemp seeds or peanut butter or PB2 pure. So, or some kind of nut kind of thing. And so the protein could be from different sources. And yeah, you can use a protein powder, but I'm going for food first, and then you can add whatever stuff. And then you're adding fiber. So let's see, we said we have liquid from whatever protein I mentioned, and then the fruit. Maybe you can add spinach if you like that, or arugula or something, just to make it so that, you're adding as much to not mess with the flavor profile. If you don't like spinach in your smoothie, then you add less or not at all. And then some kind of liquid if you need it. And I know some people like ice. And so we have the protein, the carb, and then you could add like a tablespoon or two of oats. to the smoothie, or I have a recipe I can share with everybody that's this template for the smoothie with instead of adding the oats to the smoothie and, you know, blending it, you make like a homemade cereal that's just toasted oats, unsweetened coconut, pumpkin seeds, and cinnamon. So you add like 2 to 4 tablespoons of that cereal on top of the smoothie, and you eat it with a spoon, which will help you slow down your digestion. Because chewing is actually a good thing. So,
What?
so in terms of like, it's about the portions of the carbohydrates for your activity. So in the morning, like having balanced meals and snacks throughout the day with the protein, the carbohydrate with fiber and energy, non-starchy vegetables whenever you can, squeeze them in. I took an oath, this is one of the jokes, you know, I took an oath as a dietitian, cram the vegetables wherever possible, and then healthy fats. So protein, carbohydrates with fiber and energy, non-starchy vegetables, and healthy fats, like through each meal throughout the day. We're not going to get it right all the time, or we're not going to slam dunk it all the time, but the best we can as possible. We'll do the best we can. So like if you had, sometimes we have like a cheese stick or like an apple or whatever in the afternoon for a snack, like one or the other, but better to have the carbohydrate like the apple, or you could replace that carbohydrate with something else if you don't like apples. But I'm saying like fruit or like seedy crackers or something like that. Maybe some of you guys have seen these like Mary's seeded crackers. Um, uh, they're a carbohydrate like an apple or fruit, and then you add protein to it, and then you have a balanced snack. So if you had like an apple at 3 o'clock and you're not going to eat until 6:30, you might not be able to keep your pieces together. But if you have the protein with carbohydrate, like apple with peanut butter, then you'll probably be able to make it to dinner more safely, and the monster will be tamed until dinner.
Yeah. Those are all really, really good. And I can't wait. So we are going to share some of your recipes and your information with everyone that registered for this call, as well as a recording of this. So I was actually sharing with one of my clients this morning when I was training with them that we were doing this because she's one of those people that constantly laments to me. She's so busy and she's a real estate agent. So she lives in her car and sometimes she's out in the middle of nowhere. So it's like even to like swing by a gas station and buy a bottle of water. And so she's like, I keep snacks in my car. But when talking to her, like, what were the snacks she bought? Well, it was the simple package stuff. So it was like the veggie sticks, like in the crinkly package, which, you know, better than
Like the
cheese
chip
puffs.
kind?
Yeah. And it's like better than cheese puffs, but like that was primarily it. Like it's all these puffy, processed carbohydrate kind of things, or it's a cracker. You know, she's having a hard time keeping the protein because everything that she could think of that was protein, like cheese sticks and stuff, she's like, my car gets so hot and I'm in it all day. Even if I put it in a cooler bag, that ice starts to melt. And then I worry everything in the car gets melty. Like, what can she keep in the car? You know, just regular, like she has a basket she has in the back seat with just snacks. What could she be adding to that basket to help her make sure she's getting a good mix of things that isn't going to go bad, either on really, really cold days like we get here in Pennsylvania, or on really, really hot days like we're having today?
Yeah, so shelf stable. So yeah, I think so dry roasted edamame. This is I'm having a hard time here, but this is what's cool about these are 100 calorie packs for those of you who pay attention to that. But they're 10 grams of protein, 4 grams of fiber. So it's significant. So these kind of they're more protein and fiber compared to nuts. So I think those are efficient. I really like them. Most people I've recommended like them and they appreciate the satiation. You get like 30 beans in one of the packages. And like sometimes I'll need something and I'll just have half of one and I'll be like, whoa, I'm okay. I'm not saying that will work for you, but it's just, they're really satiating. So those with like fruit, that doesn't need to be refrigerated. I think getting really good at being the cooler person so that having the confidence would be helpful, because then there would be more opportunity for a variety of like some fresh stuff. Because you know, hummus with, you know, crunchy vegetables is helpful, like snap peas. for those of you who are using like the chippy kind of vegetable stuff, I would maybe try freeze-dried vegetables. Because the freeze-dried vegetables actually have more nutrients in them compared to the chippy stuff. Um, and like, you know, you could buy hummus, that's fine. But if you wanted to, what I like to do is I like to add some hemp seeds to hummus to increase the protein and reduce the portion of the hummus. And then I do the same thing with nut butters. I'll add some, instead of like 2 tablespoons of some sort of nut butters, like 7 grams of protein and 200 calories. But if you add hemp seeds instead of adding more nut butter, then you're increasing the protein more significantly. And so this is the best of me that you could get, because I'm not just like have apple with peanut butter. I'm like have apple with peanut butter and hemp seeds. Have hummus. Like if you were to make hummus at home and add like roasted beets, then you have like red beet, you know, hummus. And, you know, you don't want to add so much beets that it becomes like this liquidy, like there's too much beet situation. You know what I mean? Um, but like if you put like some chopped beets on top and people see like what that is on it, and that can be kind of fun, maybe not fun for everyone, but or like roasted spiced carrot hummus. And so then there's like orange hummus, and then you can make like roasted cauliflower hummus. And so I'm saying use like standard chickpea hummus, whether or not you bought it or made it, and then add some vegetables to it. And then you're adding nutrients from vegetables and you're reducing the portion of the hummus, reducing the calories, in case people are paying attention to that. And there's other types of, you know, vegetable-based hummuses that you could make that are fun. And so, I mean, hard-boiled eggs or like these protein salads, as long as it's like ice chest situation, could be cool. Making one's own trail mix or buying it already measured, you know, the single serving ones are perfectly fine. If you're somebody that likes the M&Ms or the chocolate chip kind, that's fine. You know, ideally, I'd rather you buy your own chocolate chips, like, you know, a good dark one that you really like versus like whatever they put in the pre-made packages. But if the ones that are in the pre-made packages bring you joy, I'd rather you have that experience.
Yeah. And speaking of joy and all the chocolate talk, so I gotta address this. I'm totally that one that gets the 3 o'clock sugar crash and then looking for chocolate. And like I do like I have my chocolate treat every day, and I tend to get it at 3 o'clock versus in the evening. But I know that's a common thing with like keeping our regular blood sugar. And I know even prior to this event, we had a few people reach out to us about, you know, being diabetic and monitoring their sugars. But even if you're not diabetic, we all kind of get that 3 o'clock drag and we look for the sweet stuff or we go back to the coffee pot. What do you recommend to help us to stabilize those sugars and keep our energy up throughout the day?
Like eat real food. That's my recommendation. So it makes sense. Like lunch is probably somewhere around like 12 to 2-ish, plus or minus. And then there's this lovely break between the last time we ate and dinner. And so have a real food thing. It's legitimate to feel like you need something. Caffeine helps with, like, you know, caffeine is a stimulant. So that makes sense. It's logical. Like, oh, I need something. Yeah. And coffee and sugar are convenient and they don't feel like that much a big deal. You know what I mean? And it's a habit. I'm not saying don't, I'm not saying cut this out, if just reflect on if it's helpful or not. But you could create like a chocolate chia seed pudding, or those of you who like Greek yogurt, you could have a chocolate pudding with Greek yogurt with good cocoa powder. And so it's just Greek yogurt, fruit, and cocoa powder. And it's really good. The cocoa powder that I recommend is very specific. Again, I think you've already gotten a sense that I'm specific. So the brand is Valrhona, Valrhona. I believe it's from Venezuela. And it's more flavorful, like fuerte, strong, compared to like your average cocoa powder. You know, if you can't find it, whatever, it's not a deal breaker. But I think that's kind of like go for something that's chocolate, have it, that's really good, and fully enjoy it. I like making, you could have like peanut butter and chocolate chips instead of like a Reese's, and then you have like dark chocolate. I like the chocolate chips I like are Ghirardelli, the extra dark ones. I know not everybody's gonna like those, but it's a red package. So peanut butter and the dark chocolate chips, and that's your homemade Reese's, right? That's not a big deal. Or if you get like, I like just measure the chocolate chips or have like a chocolate square or have the thing that you like with some kind of protein. Um, and that'll help you like, and assess like whether or not the thing you had was enough to get you to dinner without the monster coming out and making decisions for you. So that was specific ideas about chocolate, but also you could have like 1 or 2 dates with like maybe goat cheese and some fruit, or like make a little like, like bento box or a little like snacky kind of thing. That's like a bunch of different components that doesn't feel like a lot of work. So like some nuts, like, some walnuts or almonds or a mixture of the two. And then maybe if you're a cheese person, have a little bit of cheese. So those are 2 protein sources. Maybe the edamame, some vegetables, and then maybe a little bit of fruit. So then it's not like all of one thing and that's it, but it's kind of fun. Olives, make a little charcuterie thing that's not, I think that's helpful. You can get like single serving packages of olives at Trader Joe's or other different places. So have like, that would be good to have on the road.
Okay. Yeah, and we just got a question. So somebody just submitted a question. So protein is the key factor to keeping you satisfied. Is it common for people to not get enough protein? I will say, so I am not as educated in the nutrition realm as Alicia, but I do have my precision nutrition coaching certification. And when I work with my clients, I will say, no, a lot of my clients don't get enough protein. They're very carb heavy, or they do focus on healthy fats and they're very fat focused as far as like when we look at those macros, are they getting it in the right proportion? I don't think enough people do get enough protein, and protein does help keep you fuller, but I don't think that's it. It's also fiber. And so, Alicia, I'm going to let you chime in because I'm sure you've got a lot more to add to that.
Totally. Like in social media, those of you who pay attention to that, like a lot of the information is like protein dominant, where it used to be like fat, like cut the fat, cut the fat. Where can we cut the fat? And so it's balanced meals and snacks, balanced meals and snacks. You go anywhere, you're in Japan, you're in New York, you're in Ohio, Pennsylvania, wherever you are, balanced meals and snacks, and you're not going to get it right all the time. But because we're beautifully imperfect or perfect, your choice. So protein's important. Plant-based, animal-based protein is important anytime you eat. And in general, I usually recommend anywhere between like a minimum of 20 to 25 grams of protein for a meal. And I don't know who's here or anything, but that's just like a guide. I could give more specific recommendations individually. But yeah, I mean, if you have like oatmeal with a little bit of milk added to it after it was cooked and like some raisins, then that's gonna not have enough protein. And so if you have like egg-based dinner, whatever meal, it doesn't matter if it's breakfast for dinner is pretty fun. Eggs, you're usually gonna have enough, unless you only have one egg, and that's the protein for that meal. That's not enough. And so yeah, I mean, it's easy to not get enough protein, especially it's like as we age, we are likely to lose muscle mass for a lot of different reasons. Besides, like that's one of the reasons why it's important to keep up with the strength training, is to keep the muscles, and you can, build muscle as we age. So it's not just any one ingredient, it's the culmination of everything, just like how we become better people as we age because of our experience.
Mm-hmm. And then I also, I'm going to add to that. So I started working with an aging population, and you and I met through a friend who specializes in that, Adrienne. How important is it too for protein specifically? Because I'm hearing a lot more conversation around making sure you're getting more protein, especially as you get older, that's something that we do need to focus on.
Absolutely. It's essential. Yeah, it's so easy. There's a lot of different reasons why food choices change. Sometimes some people perceive it hard to, make the meal planning happen and just, you know, making choices, how they make choices. But yeah, it's really, really important to make sure nutrition is a priority. No matter what, it's not necessarily aging, but no matter what. I mean, we can kind of like get away with certain things as a younger person just because we kind of seem to get whatever function or whatever. But at the same time, like focusing on health as a younger person is the best time to really embed not only habits, but it's in a healthy person. But I know we have a variety of folks here, mostly not showing their faces.
Yeah, all good. And we are only, there was a little bit of a typo in this session. So this is going to end around 3 o'clock. So we have 15 minutes. So if you had any questions, you can enter those into the chat. But I've got a question for me. So a busy mom. I run 3 different businesses. I've got 2 children, 6 and 2.5. And of course, at that age, 6 and 2.5, they only want to eat cheese, dino nuggets, the Annie's brown bunnies. At least I don't buy the Teddy Grahams, and like yogurt bites. What do I do with my picky eaters? Like especially when I'm on the go, because I will say cooking sometimes feels like a chore. Like I'm managing what I can eat on Crohn's. I can't have high fiber. My husband can't do dairy, and my kids only want to eat like one of 5 things. Like they've got that decision process thing down. They've got their list. I know the 5 things to feed my kids. So how can I make an easy family meal when I'm so busy and on the go that also encompasses all the needs of the picky eaters in my life?
I think acceptance is the first step. Because to make it easier, you just gotta, okay, let's make it happen. Everybody's, yeah. So including the components that everybody could eat together. And sometimes that means other people, not everybody's eating the same thing. And so it's just acceptance to make it easier. And you and your husband can eat the same thing, which is helpful, and maybe the 6-year-old. But I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I was a picky eater as a kid, and I think it's just like having the conversation with people about like what they want, how to make it happen, so that it's less hard if you talk about it versus like sitting in your head and mulling about how it's hard. Because there's going to be opportunities to advance the kids in different foods when they're ready. And it's just, it is what it is. And so I think the most important thing is like make it easy for you and your husband to eat together, because I perceive that as not hard. I know I have different skill set than you, but it's important, I think, for people to hear that, like, if you think whatever's hard, it's not, it's just figuring it out. I'm not saying it's not hard, but I'm just like lightening it up, because if what we think about, that more of that happens. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like busy wackadoodle day, and you're like so hard every day, it's going to be hard. But if you're like, we'll figure it out, we're going to keep figuring it out, just like you have up to this moment in life, I think you can continue the problem solving mindset more so than it's hard, it's frustrating, whatever.
Well, I think
And
the
I
other
did
thing
want to
too.
just chime in before I forgot, like those of you, Megan said diabetic. So we are not our diseases. So it's more accurate to say somebody with diabetes, or somebody with Crohn's, or somebody with whatever, and somebody with digestive issues or whatever. It's just common that some people say diabetic, and we're not our diseases. We have certain experiences that we have to pay attention to our health, and that's why everybody's here today.
Yeah, that's huge. That's something I learned a long time ago. Like I never say, "Oh, I'm a Crohn's patient," or like I have Crohn's. Like I manage it. There's good days, there's bad days, and everyone who has Crohn's, it's slightly different. So I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, exactly.
The other thing I like that you said is that it's a skill. And that really, like you said, you can do meal prep a lot faster. And if you really want to get good at it and cut the time, it's like any other skill that you would develop. You have to do it. You gotta practice it. You got to start to master it by not doing it, by just constantly telling yourself, this is too hard. I'm never going to master this. This is overwhelming. Oh, I don't have time for it. I'll put it off till next week. You're not going to get any easier. It's better to just dive in. I like that. Just accept it, dive in, Don't think about it too hard. Just put in the time, and over time that skill set will build. And so I think that's really just a good point that you kind of like mentioned just but it's like that was a good little takeaway. Another question we got in here is, do you need a lot of equipment to meal prep? Like what's the arsenal you've got in your kitchen, Alicia? Like, do you need to have fancy kitchen equipment? Do you need to have fancy air fryers and pressure cookers? Like, what do you have to make most of your meals?
I bought a giant air fryer, Instant Pot, like I think it was a 6 quart one 2 years ago, and I didn't use it. I haven't used it yet. It's like in my closet. I took it out a couple times, like 4 times. I took it out and it's like, me and this thing, I'm gonna figure it out, and it didn't happen. So you don't need the air fryer. The air fryer can be helpful. Some people get stressed out about the oven. There's a stovetop there, usually 4 burners, and then there's like the door to the, some people get stressed out about the stove. But so if you're that person, maybe these external, equipment, electrical equipment, electronic equipment or whatever, air fryer, etc., can be helpful. So do you have the counter space? Do you whatever? I think it's good. This is a really important question because like we could buy all kinds of things, but if we don't use them, that adds to our another thing I haven't used. You know what I mean? And that doesn't help us oftentimes. So free yourself of thoughts. The extraneous thoughts are not helpful. You have basic equipment at home. If you have like a microwave, a toaster oven that can heat up stuff, you have 2 ways to heat stuff up in a small kind of contained way on the counter. And then, you have the stovetop, and the oven usually. And so I think if that's what you have, a couple years ago, I gave a friend of mine my like standing mixer because I was like, I don't need to make bread. What if I did, I could borrow one from some, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't matter. I don't have a ton of counter space. And so I was like, just being realistic. And my friend had kids and like it was, they could make stuff together or whatever. And so, like free yourself of thoughts of like having, and, for some people, like I have a couple clients that have ADHD and the air fryer is helpful because it's just like this thing and there's a drawer and like helps with focus.
We use our air fryer a lot. Usually it's for dino nuggets. Dino nuggets in the air fryer changes the game. Another question that we just got in kind of with that, how should we be storing our foods? Do we need to avoid plastic containers? So,
I think being realistic, like I have glass, like 30-ounce planning meal, like single serving meal planning containers. I got from Amazon, and they have these clippy lids. Like some of the lids you have to like push really hard, and I don't like those because it hurts my hands kind of, especially if whatever. I've already used my hands for exercise or whatever. But glass, I think glass is ideal. There's no way around it. But it's heavy. So like when I have some plastic containers that I carry somewhere. Like if somebody were to pick me up, I don't drive. So if somebody were to pick me up in a car and we are going to go somewhere, I might bring some glass stuff, depending on where we're going, whatever. But like if I'm going to go on a walk and we're going to go to a picnic and I'm going to carry stuff, I'm just going to use plastic because it's just lighter, and like I don't drive, so I'm likely going to carry stuff around wherever I'm going. And so I'm just mindful of like the weight. But I have tons of like 12 and 16-ounce mason jars or canning jars for like the chia seed pudding, the overnight oats, the soups, the stews that I mentioned in single serving containers. So I freeze in glass. There might be like an outlier, like freezing plastic just, degrades the plastic faster. And then I'm actually going to recycle some of my plastic containers that I've had for too many years, like this weekend, because I was like, it's just time to refresh the plastic because it is what it is. But we are eating out of more plastic stuff in general. So the most important thing is like, don't let the idea of them drive you crazy. Like, let it go. It is what it is now. You'll figure it out, move on.
yep. All right, we are just about out of time. So, Alicia, I'd love for you to just share like how people can get a hold of you if they want some more of your recipes or they want to work with you, or if they have any specific questions that they may not feel comfortable asking in front of a group. What's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
Absolutely. You could send me an email. I could put my email in the chat, but it's my full name. My name is listed on the Zoom there. So it's Alicia@aliciaconnor.com. And I can type it in the chat. Or Megan, do you mind putting it in the chat?
Nope. Let
Okay.
me pull it up here. And then can you tell us a little bit about Quick and Delish and what you offer?
Absolutely. So I actually have a Quick and Delish live session tomorrow and Saturday. It's the same topic, just different time and day. And it's 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific time or 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern time. So the topic is about healthy travel or traveling with your health goals in mind. Also a little bit about meals that heal, which are like shared meals with people and instead of maybe like going out to eat and like the importance of that. So that topic, so that session, I have like a monthly subscription membership. It's $57 a month for a one Quick and Delish live session. So if you were to register today for this topic coming up, then and you didn't want to continue, just cancel it. It's not a big deal. You're just paying for the one-time thing. But I think it's a good deal, and you get some resources, some meal planning resources I share, and documents that I share to support the information of the topic. So the Quick and Delish Life session is like a 20-minute presentation slide deck situation, and then I open up for Q&A discussion, like people actually talk, not just in the chat. And then you could schedule one-on-one free consult to discuss how I could support you on your journey of awesomeness. So those are a couple different ways I work with folks.
All right, awesome. And I did put those live sessions in the chat here. So there's a link if you guys are interested in signing up or subscribing to that, as well as her email. As for me, again, I'm with Life Force Wellness. I do individual and corporate wellness. So we offer programs like this to employers for their employees. So if this is something you think your coworkers or your company might be interested in, is offering this as a resource, we'd love to come in and do some educational sessions with them as well. So I also will enter my email into the chat. And if anyone has any questions, they can certainly reach out to us. We will be sharing the recording of this session with everyone. And yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Alicia, thank you so much for your time. Thank you guys for coming and for all your great questions.